Picture this. You're looking out your back door, and your entire yard is completely exposed. Every time you step outside, it feels like the neighbors are watching your every move. You've probably been led to believe that the only way to get some peace and quiet is to drop thousands of dollars on a massive wooden barrier and beg your homeowners association for a permission slip. That is a flat-out myth. I've watched folks blow a small fortune on backyard seclusion when they could have faked a high-end look for less than $30 using cheap discount store supplies. And the reason nobody in the landscaping business will tell you this, there's zero profit in it for us. After spend years in the field walking properties, quoting fences, and ripping out rotting wood, I'm going to give it to you straight. The most budget-friendly outdoor hacks I've ever come across also happen to look incredibly premium. Stick around because the final strategy on this list, the one I figured out after completely messing up my own property, costs practically nothing and bypass all the red tape. It's the ultimate game changer between feeling totally exposed and completely tucked away. Whether you're staying put for the next 2 decades or listing the place next spring, this is the insider knowledge nobody ever shares. Let's count it down from 5 to 1. 5, double up the fake greens. Let's kick things off with the most common go-to, and the one folks always mess up, artificial greenery. We're talking about those cheap, leafy faux ivy panels you can pick up for practically nothing. Here's the usual trap. People grab a few, strap them to a chain barrier, step back, and immediately regret it. It looks exactly like what it is, cheap plastic zip tied to a fence. But years ago, I saw a homeowner do something brilliant. She didn't spread them out. Instead, she doubled down, overlapping the panels so heavily that you couldn't see a single inch of the wire underneath. The real kicker, she bought 2 subtly different shades of green. Real foliage isn't just one solid color. By mixing those tones and layering the pieces, your brain instantly processes it as a living, breathing hedge. For a few extra bucks and a few minutes of tweaking, she turned a tacky craft project into custom look installation. A professionally installed living screen can easily run you a few grand, and you're stuck staring at twigs for 3 years until it fills out. This fake alternative gives you immediate relief for the cost of a drive. Through lunch, will this trick an appraiser into raising your property value? Absolutely not. This is strictly for your own sanity, so you can eat dinner on the patio without the guy next door studying your plate. It looks fantastic from 10 feet away, which is exactly where your neighbor is standing. The downside, and why this only takes the 5th spot, is the sun. Direct sunlight will bleach cheap plastic into depressing gray within a couple of summers. So, either hang this in a shaded spot or treat it as a temporary fix you swap out every 2 years. 4. Weight the outdoor curtains. This next one is a drastically underutilized trick that actually gets better with time. I'm not talking about those expensive, heavy-duty drapes from Patio catalogs. I mean picking up some basic fabric shower curtains or weather-resistant tablecloths from a discount store and stringing them up on a cheap tension rod or a piece of PVC pipe. Imagine your totally exposed patio, pergola, or deck corner. It currently feels like a public stage. String a rod across one open side, slide on a few fabric panels, and suddenly you've carved out an actual room. They catch the breeze, soften the hard edges of the space, and give you that high-end resort vibe for under 15 bucks. But here's the detail that makes or breaks the illusion. You have to weight the bottom hem. Curtains whipping wildly in the wind and wrapping around the rod look incredibly cheap and chaotic. Slip a piece of chain, some heavy washers, or basic curtain weights in the bottom hem. Instantly, the fabric hangs with a clean straight line and sways slowly, mimicking the heavy, expensive linen you see at a boutique hotel cabana. The beauty of curtains is versatility. You pull them shut when you want to lock a sight line, and tie them back when you want the view. Faux greenery is static. Curtains give you control. Stick to solid warm neutrals like oatmeal, soft white, or muted terracotta patterns tend to cheapen the look. On top of that, a well-defined outdoor space is a huge selling point. Real estate industry data proves time and again that staging an outdoor area to look like a private functional room helps properties photograph beautifully and sell much faster. You aren't just buying privacy, you're buying a superior listing photo. 3. Stagger the potted plant clusters. The problem with both curtains and fake ivy is that they're flat. They block a view, but they lack depth, and depth is exactly what makes a yard look expensive. That brings us to number 3, building in 3-dimension with potted plants. Forget everything you've seen, because the standard approach is completely wrong. 1. Lonely pot sitting in the middle of a deck makes the area look barren and forgotten. To pull this off, you need to cluster them. Buy cheap pots in varying heights and group them tightly in odd numbers, 3s or 5s. Put the tallest in the back and stagger the smaller ones up front so they overlap. That tight, staggered arrangement is the exact technique high-end landscape architects use to make a garden look lush and layered. Now, a $2 pot on the ground isn't tall enough to block anyone's view. You need vertical height. Grab a heavy-duty bucket or a milk crate, flip it upside down, place your pot on top, and use the smaller planters in the front to hide your makeshift pedestal. This throws a 5 to 6 foot screen of greenery right where you need it, for a fraction of what a mature nursery tree would cost. You don't even have to buy fully grown plants. Buy cheap starter clippings or seeds and let them grow. Fast-growing ornamental grasses are the ultimate cheat code here. They shoot up quickly, they sway beautifully in the wind just like the curtains, and they look remarkably sophisticated. Agricultural University studies consistently show that smart landscaping can give you a mass return on investment, sometimes boosting a home's value by 5 to 12% over a bare yard. On a tipple house, that's tens of thousands of dollars in perceived value from $40 worth of planters. Just remember, neglect shows. A dead plant in the sun, faded cracked plastic pot drags the whole yard down instantly. 2. Warm solar uplighting. This next trick is the secret sauce that makes all your other cheap upgrades look twice as expensive, and it works precisely when your neighbors are most likely to be looking outside. Number 2 is lighting, specifically discount. Solar lights placed correctly. When I first started out, I thought outdoor lighting was about blasting the yard with brightness until it looked like a parking lot. I was completely wrong. A homo taught me the real secret during an evening walkthrough. She took those cheap $1-a-piece solar stakes, shoved them deep in her planting beds, and aimed the beam straight up through the leaves and against the fence posts. That is called uplighting. It creates stunning shadows, rich text drama. It transforms a boring, flat fence into a warm, layered backdrop. But here's the massive privacy hack everyone misses. Beautiful lighting draws the eye inward. When your patio is glowing softly from within, anyone looking over from the outside can't see past that light in the darkness. It creates a psychological shield. You feel cozy and enclosed, even in a totally open space. The golden rule here is to strictly buy warm, amber-toned bulbs. Cool blue. White lights look harsh and industrial, like a gas station. Warm light feels like an expensive restaurant patio. If your local store only stocks the stark white ones, there's a ridiculously easy fix. Brush a light coat of amber nail polish or stick some tinted film over the lit solar panel bulb. It takes 10 minutes and warms the whole space up. A hardwired, low-voltage landscape lighting system with the trenching, transformers, and labor runs anywhere from $2 to $6 grand. This solar hack gives you a similar vibe for $30, install in an afternoon, and requires no electrician. The permanent structure loophole. Notice how every single thing we've discussed so far, the ivy, the curtain, the pots, the lights, is freestanding, temporary, and entirely reversible. That is not an accident. That is the ultimate loophole. Your HOA and your local city permit office almost exclusively care about two words: permanent structures. The minute you sink a post in concrete or bolt wood to your siding, you're in their jurisdiction. You're filling out applications, paying fees, and waiting for approvals. But a curtain on a tension rod or a solar light shoved in the dirt, they're absolutely nothing for them to approve. You're furnishing your yard the way you'd furnish a living room, and nobody needs a permit to move a couch. Contractors, and I used to be the guy in the truck doing this, push the permanent fences and massive decks because that's where the profit margins are. Nobody gets rich telling you to buy a handful of solar stakes. The whole industry profits off the illusion that privacy has to be permanent, expensive, and government approved. It doesn't. If you want all these layouts, placement rules, and design combination mapped out for your specific yard type, I've compiled everything into a comprehensive digital guide linked down in the description below. It's built for folks who are tired of throwaway money on the wrong solutions. 1. Privacy is about angles, not walls. Now, for the ho-nos with a real budget who think these dollar store tricks don't apply to them, listen closely. Whether you're spend thousands or spend nothing, whether you're selling in 3 months or staying forever, this cuts across every budget. The most valuable thing you can, though, doesn't cost a dime because it's not a product. It's know exactly where to place the things you buy. A homer who drops $4,000 on a custom fence in the wrong spot than some who spends $30 on a clever screen in the perfect spot. If you're selling your house, you don't need to enclose the entire perimeter. Buyers judge a backyard in the first 15 seconds of step out the back door. That is your money angle. Stage your privacy and lighting right there on that one sight line, and the buyer's brain will naturally fill in the rest. If you're staying in the house, go sit in the exact chair where you drink your coffee or eat dinner. Notice exactly where you feel exposed. It's almost never the whole yard. It's usually just one neighbor's window, one gap in the trees, one gap in the trees, or one angle from the street. Fix that single spot, and the entire property flips from completely exposed to totally private. And that leads directly to the number one secret I learned the hard way. The golden rule is this: privacy is about angles, not walls. Years ago, my own patio was horribly exposed to a 2-story house behind me. I felt watched all the time, so I did what my industry trained me to do. I built a massive 6-foot fence and slapped lattice on top to push it to 7 feet. I spent a fortune and blew my whole weekend. When I finally sat down in my patio chair with a cold drink, I looked up, and that 2nd-story window was still staring right down at me. The neighbor wasn't looking through the fence. They were looking right over it. My expensive wall did absolutely nothing to fix the angle. Here is the simple geometry that will save you thousands. Privacy is just an invisible line between their eye and your body. You don't have to block the entire property line. You just have to break that one specific sight line, and you can break it anywhere along that path. Think about holding your hand up. If you hold it an inch from your face, it blocks your entire field of vision. If you hold it at arm's length, it barely blocks anything. The closer the barrier is to you, the smaller and cheaper it needs to be. So, this weekend, go sit in your favorite outdoor spot. Have someone stand exactly where the intrusion comes from, the neighbor's deck, the street, the upstairs window. Trace that invisible line between their eyes and yours. Then, drop a tall potted plant, a single curtain panel, or a raised cluster of greenery right next to your chair, breaking that line at the absolute closest point. I proved this in my own yard after wasting all that money on the fence. I put one large ornamental grass on a crate 3 feet away from my chair. It completely erased the neighbor's 2nd-story window for $15. When you place the screen up close, you also naturally create that expense's depth we talked about earlier. Your eye registers the plant in the foreground, the yard in the midground, and the perimeter in the background. It looks incredibly lush and deliberately designed. The massive wall out at the property line just gives you a flat bore-in backdrop. Breaking the angle close to you is the ultimate cheat code to skip the expensive wall entirely. You came here thinking you needed a giant construction budget and a stack of HOA approvals to reclaim your backyard. The truth is, you needed neither. You just dodged a quote that could have easily run into thousands, and you can solve the real problem this weekend with a quick trip to the discount store and a little bit of geometry. Let me know down in the comments which of these design blunders you've been guilty of, or which trick you're going to try out first. Also, drop your location down there. I read them and I answer them. If you're tired of getting up, sold, and want the raw truth about your property from some who used to be the guy in the truck, hit subscribe. Next time, I'm exposing the 3 so-called yard upgrades that actively destroy your home's resale value. And the first one is something you probably installed on purpose because you thought it looked great. Check out the link below to join the private community where I answer your questions directly. Now that your yard actually feels private, stick around and keep watching to see exactly how to make it look ridiculously expensive on a tiny budget.